Okay, to do our burning with the board, we use sort of a little soldering iron. This is called a Weller, and it's SP4L. I found these on Amazon. You can get them at a hardware store or a craft store. I think they were about $10, so they weren't a great investment, but they are so useful. Okay, before you plug your Weller in, you want to check the screw to make sure that's tight. This is not plugged in right now, but what this screw does is keeps the heating element in place so that it's not going to move around. So check that before you begin. Okay? So for our Weller, we just built little stands. It will come with this metal piece because we wanted to keep them hands-free and safe. So I'm going to put this out of the way, okay, and show you some of our other tools. We use a fork, and that's so that when we're separating the strands and using the burning tool, we don't have to put our hands anywhere near that. We have 4 extra large rubber bands. We've got a pair of scissors, and then you need some kind of tape, and it's a good idea to have a couple of pieces ready to go. Okay, to unspool your twine, just stick your finger in the top of the twine and let it go. Make sure you're working in a clean area, and don't overlap your twine on top of itself too much. And the weight of the twine will actually pull it all off. And you want to unspool quite a bit, at least half the spool before you start wrapping your board, so that you're ready to not have to stop as you're going. Okay, I'm now ready to put my twine on the board. I'm going to put the twine on and use one of my pieces of masking tape. I don't want my tape on my burn line because I don't want to burn the tape. But do you see how I'm starting here? That would mean my circuit would finish right here. So I have complete number of pieces, so I know everything's going to match right away. Okay, after I've got that piece kind of secure, I'm going to tip my board up on its side. And now I'm going to begin wrapping the twine around the board. Something that's important to note is you do not want to wrap too tightly. If you wrap too tightly, when you start burning, the twine is going to spring, so it's not going to burn all the way through. You'll have an easier time of this. You have a little bit more room. Okay, so I'm going to go wrapping. And I'm going to wrap about half of a spool, so that's about 30 strands on a board. Okay, so now you can see from the side of the board how the bands are starting to line up. And as you keep doing this, you'll get faster. This is actually a pretty slow wrap, but that's okay. We're instructing. Now, somebody out there is probably going to invent a great way for these boards just to stand on something. So let me know when you do, because we're interested in it. So see how I need to push my strands down just a little to make some more room? I don't ever want to wrap it so that they're solid, so that I can't move anybody, but I do want them somewhat close. Okay, stop. Okay, so I've got about 30 wraps on the board. I'm going to put a piece of tape on the twine, and I'm going to cut it. That way I know it's not going to fray, so that it's all set for the next time. Okay, I'm going to use an additional piece of tape just to secure this to the board. Okay, stick that guy into those. Okay, now I need to put my rubber bands on. So there's 2 different ways to band. If you're going to burn on the top, you'd need rubber bands around each of your burning lines. If you're going to burn on the bottom and the top, you need rubber bands on both sides of your burning line, and then 1 to hold the top and 1 to hold the bottom. I'll burn on the top for the first one. So I'm going to just double up my rubber bands and slide them into place. Trying not to get them all twisted up. Now we tried things like surgical tubing and stuff, but they really didn't hold it as well. Okay, so now I'm ready to burn. All right, just to clarify, I want to show you where we place the bands if you're doing a top burn versus a bottom burn. So if you're doing a top burn, the bands will go around both of the burning sections. Okay, so there are your 4 bands. If you were going to do a burn where you do the top and the bottom, you're going to place around the burning section. Then you're going to put 1 at the end, hold them secure, and 1 at the far end. Okay, and that will hold those in place so that when you flip the board, nothing's going to come loose. All right, we're ready to burn. So I'm going to use my fork and my burning tool. Okay, the fork is going to hold the strand in place for me, and I'm just going to go straight down through the twine. Okay, if I go too fast, the twine isn't going to seal. So I want to make sure I take enough time to let it seal. The other thing is, after I've burned it, I don't want it sitting too close next to its neighbor, because it will melt right to him. Alright, so if I see the strings are starting to spring on me, I'm going to use the fork to hold it in place. Separate the strands a little bit. You'll be able to tell after you've burned a couple and knotted some of them how this is going. If they start to fray when you knot them, then you know you need to take a little bit more time when you're doing this. Okay, now I'm going to turn my board around just for our camera purposes. I'm going to burn our second set. Got one friend who burns, and he says he's going to invent just a ribbon that kind of does all of these at once. Waiting for him to get that done. There we go. Now this is the only job we're going to use our burner for. When we go to finish our chaplets, we'll use a candle for that. Alright, so now I've got my twine burned, and I can take off my rubber bands, and I can take out my spaghetti straps. Good idea to take the rubber band off first. Okay, you can pause it. Okay, so after I've got my chunks of spaghetti off, I need to just put my fingers through the strands. And if I find a place where they're stuck together, I'll just take them to the weller here and just gently separate them. Sometimes you'll find just putting your hand through it is going to end up separating your strands. Okay, so put your hands through and separate those strands. Okay, you're going to do that on each of your ends, on your long strings and on your short strings, and then you are all set.